how do you kind of feel about the plot in general? I really enjoy these like revenge for Naught kind of things, especially when you have like all these intertwining stories. You know, the whole focus was to, you know, kill Turpin, get your wife, get your kid, move forward kind of thing. And obviously, you know, Todd comes back, everything's in ruin, but he can still get to Turpin and he can still get Joanna.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel, I guess, about that overall plot structure where it's like you do all these things and then by the end of it, like it's for naught, like he's our main character, but he still dies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't really get any of that reconciliation.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's almost like the story's teaching you a lesson about revenge, right? Because you go out and you have all these intentions and then, you know, things start going your way, and I guess really because of their success, right, with Lovett, you know, they kind of, you know, get distracted from the main point. Whereas he's never really distracted. Like, you know, she has her little fantasy scene, and you know, he's just kind of sitting there, like in whatever outfit, just kind of like, I don't care what you're saying right now to me.
Very dejected because that's not where he wants to be. That's not the future.
And
you
she's
know, he
like,
envisions.
Down to fuck, and he's just like, I could literally like care less. And so whereas he thinks he's using her this whole movie, it turns out in the end, you know, she's using him more or less.
Yeah.
And so he throws her in the oven, and then, you know, and in all this, he's distracted and he doesn't scope out his surroundings. All of a sudden, he killed his wife.
Yeah.
Right? And so then he's sitting there, and then he almost kills his daughter.
Yeah.
You know,
and he doesn't even recognize her, which I think is sad because, you know, she has to look so much like her.
Right.
So it's kind of but you know, he made mention specifically to Miss Lovett earlier about like, do you even remember what she looks like? Like, tell me about her. And you know, 15 years is a long time to be away from someone. So I can kind of let it slide because of that. But you'd think almost that moment of clarity would have come looking at her, but maybe it's because she didn't have the blonde hair falling down. That
well, I mean, Anthony's like, hey, no one will recognize you.
Yeah.
And he's got the hat and everything.
He was right.
So it's almost like the movie's telling you, like, hey, you know, revenge. You know, maybe, oh my God, fucking dog. Revenge maybe is not what you should pursue, right? Yeah.
Everyone loses in revenge plots like that. You know?
Typically, yeah. I think it's, I think the plot's very good.
Yeah.
Which I think was part of that question.
Yeah.
As well. But
yeah, just how do you think those kind of like revenge for naught, you know, it's like you have all this elaborate steps, all these things that you do throughout the story, but then, you know, your revenge doesn't really have a meaningful impact by the end of it because you don't get that reconciliation as the main character enacting the revenge kind of thing. And I will say, I want to bring up just one point before I forget about it. In the ending sequence, I think you had mentioned where it seemed like Todd like wasn't really checking his surroundings when like Todd was coming up behind him Toby was coming up behind him to kill him.
Well, that I felt I have a different idea on that. But yeah,
well, no, that's what I wanted to talk about. Where it seemed like intentional, where like he raised his neck up a little bit, like he was aware of and like accepting of the death there.
Yes, to be clear, when I said he wasn't checking his surroundings, it was your wife was standing right in front of you from 15 years ago.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Don't look into that anymore. You almost killed your daughter. You're not really paying attention to the things that are going on around you. You're so
there's that cloud of revenge,
this bloodlust.
Yeah,
this guy's
clouded
got,
everything.
And so that's what I was getting at. Yes, when Toby killed him, like he definitely heard him behind him, and he's like, I killed my wife. What's the point?
Yeah.
Anthony hasn't showed up yet with my daughter, but she did. But like, I don't know.
I don't think he valued it at that point, though.
Right.
You know
I guess
what I mean?
To me, it was like, how did he not put the thing together in his mind where it's like, Anthony's coming with my daughter. Is there no chance that my daughter hid in the case that when the, you know, weird looking lady came in who turns out to be my wife, and now I'm sad that I killed her?
Yeah.
I feel like those pieces could have been put together, maybe.
And maybe in the actual like play, that's a little bit cleaner brought together because we never even really see like the confirmation or reconciliation that comes after the fact. Sure. So like once you know, Todd is dead, we don't really see what comes out after that. You know, the story is over with Todd. He's our main character, but like, you know, do Joanna and Anthony, you know, live on happily ever after?
Right.
You know, with Toby was born in a workhouse and worked under Pirelli, and then, you know, was pretty much adopted by Miss Lovett. So he doesn't have a life. He doesn't have a family or a home or anything at this point. So he's going back to the workhouse.
I had a theory.
Okay.
Toby, no, I know it's harder for children back in these, in these older times, right?
Because of scurvy or whatever.
Well, I just meant, you know, adults taking you seriously and whatnot.
Sure.
So maybe Toby, you know, takes the remaining bodies and grinds them up, you know, because his meat pie business is booming. And maybe he just makes the remainder of meat pies that he can make, you know, and runs the business. And, oh, where's Mrs. Lovett, young chap?
Yep.
And he's like, oh, she's on holiday or some shit like that, right?
Yeah.
And he just keeps selling the pies, and he runs the business till he's out of meat. And then he just, you know,
well,
takes
the
savings.
business would be doing better off then, so he'd be able to start buying regular meat.
Well, okay, he could go maintain.
Go legitimate.
Yeah, maybe he does go legit. And, okay, yeah, we'll change it up. Yeah, he goes legit. And then people keep asking, and he's just like, oh, she's fallen ill. She's gone to visit her mother in Croatia or something.
She's retired by the sea.
Retired by the sea with Mr. Todd. Yeah. So maybe he just, you know.
So it's coming back to me now. One of the things I think I do remember reading was that in the play, is that after all of that happens, that Toby is still in shock and is found like grinding the meat down there by Anthony and Joanna once Anthony comes back. I don't remember what happens after that as far as what they do with their lives, but I think I do remember reading that is kind of how that after sequence went.
Okay.
So he wouldn't have been able to hide it from them at least.
Sure. I do like I think when you end killing the main character, this person who in fairness has lost sight of everything that he did value. Mm-hmm. I think it's a fantastic way to end the movie. I mean, I like chaos. That's what life is, really.
Oh, yeah.
It's chaos, right? Nothing ever goes according to plan, per se, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's always a fantastic way to end a movie.